Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us today, and welcome to Open Info Live. Open Info Live is an interactive show sharing production case studies, open source demos, industry conversations, and the latest updates from the global open infrastructure community. This show is made possible through the support of our valued members, so let us thank them for supporting us here today. My name is Kendall Nelson, and I will be your host for today's show. We're streaming live on YouTube and LinkedIn, and we'll be answering your questions throughout the show. So feel free to drop questions into the comments section, and we'll answer as many as we can by the end of this episode. So, it's here 2023.2 release of OpenStack, affectionately named Bobcat. Today, we have with us several community members representing various OpenStack services to talk about highlights from this cycle. So, first up, we have Sylvan here to talk about Nova.
Hey, Kendall, thanks for introducing me. So thanks, folks. Yeah, I'm happy to see you again. So this time, yeah, it's the new Bobcat release. It was a pretty smooth release, without any bumps on the road, except one CVE that happened, and that Rajat will explain later. So can I? Oh yeah, can I please get the next slide? Yeah, okay, cool. So this cycle, it was an interesting cycle because we are able to merge more blueprints than the previous cycle. So as you see, we accepted 17 of those. On those 17, we basically accepted to have implementation for 8 of them, actually 9. Unfortunately, we found a last-minute problem on one of them, so we needed to revert it before the first release candidate, so that wasn't impacting any operators, no regressions found, and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, basically the number is pretty good, given also we didn't add a lot of contributors this cycle. So very thanks to all the contributors that were around, because we are very productive this cycle. As you see, the numbers are also pretty good in terms of bug fixes. We had that specific CVE that Rajat will explain later with Cinder. So again, definitely kudos to the team. It was a good one. And as last reminder as well, maybe some of you already know about the new cadence that we have for upgrades. You will be able to skip one release, and I'm happy to say that Bobcat will be the first skippable release, meaning that if you're already on Antelope, the previous release, you should be able to upgrade directly to Caracal without using Bobcat, without upgrading to Bobcat first. So if you really want to use Bobcat, that's definitely good, and I will appreciate that, but it's possible to be skipped. Next slide, please. Okay, so what do we have this cycle for Bobcat? So first, it's important to mention that we are currently changing our quota system. The limits that you are previously providing directly in Nova should now be provided in Keystone. That will help you to define all the limits for all the projects on one single place, but that will also help you to define some specific quotas for resources that were not available yet. In order to ease that move, this cycle we're providing you a new Nova Manage command that will automatically import the limits into Keystone. As a move, we also decided to deprecate the previous quota driver. That doesn't mean that it won't work, but that's a good incentive for you to test if you're running Bobcat, the new unified limits driver. That's a configuration that you can modify, and also use the migration tool. Hopefully next cycle, we should definitely be changing to use the unified limit system. A second feature that we did care for the previous cycle was actually how we weight hosts. Some operators at the previous physical PTG in Vancouver told us that they are having troubles with the current sorting that we are having for all the host candidates. We heard them, and we then provided two different widers, two different scheduler widers that can be used with different use cases. For example, if you want to migrate or create instances to hosts with the lesser number of instances, you can use that wider, but you can also try to pack your instances into specific hosts by changing the wider of that, by changing the wider number. Another wider was also created due to some discussion we had with operators. They wanted to create instances within, I would say, the last compute nodes where, for example, DOS was the latest. So we heard them, and basically we created a where that was looking at the hypervisor, hypervisor version, sorry. So for example, you can then default to use the computes that have the latest liveard version, for example, but you can also, I don't know why, but you can also modify the number and say, I would like to use the older ones. That's possible. Again, during the physical PTG in Vancouver, some operator told us that he wanted to call migrate with an end user. We heard him, so we basically created a new authorization policy for call migrate. By default, you now have two policies for call migrate. One is for call migrating without providing a host, and the other one is for call migrating by providing a host. Both of them are by default for admin users, but you can actually modify that for one of them. For example, and that's the use case that was asked for by the operator, you can modify the policy to say for an end user, I can call migrate without knowing any host. That's not possible. Some other features. For example, the liveard driver can modify the cache size for the translation block, which is nice for short memory instances. That's due to some new liveard version, and now it's supported by Nova. We also deprecated a config option for the running driver. I won't explain more of that, but basically, next cycle, hopefully, you will have a new behavior for, I would say, HS strategy. I won't tell that by now because that's one feature that we're currently looking, but look at this configuration option. You will see why we deprecated it, and basically we're working on a new feature for next cycle with the ironic team. And we also did some stability improvements about instance reboot. About volume attachments. During instance reboot, automatically we verify the volume attachments to make sure whether we have residues. And we also modified something important for us as an implementation, but for you, you will see the use case, is that, for example, when you want to rename a compute, no, it won't be accepted. Because if you did that before, Maybe you know about that, but it was creating a lot of problems. And basically what we did is that we threatened the linkage, because compute and services. So now, basically, accidentally, you shouldn't be doing that. Next cycle, please. Next cycle. Next slide, please. I know what I'm saying. Cycle. Anyway, again, so as you see, we discussed a lot with operators during the previous physical PTG. This cycle, we have a virtual PTG. That's actually nicer for operators that were not able to go to Vancouver. This time, this is virtual. That means that you can discuss without. It's simple for you. It's free. So if you have some questions, concerns, or I would say new features you would like Nova to have, look at the dates that we have for the virtual PTG. Look also at the link that I provided. And that's definitely the time where you can discuss with the contributors and you can explain your use cases. Voilà, that's basically it for Nova. So thanks. And Kendall, back to you.
Thank you. Yeah, I definitely want to invite everyone to get involved at the PTG. Like Sylvain said, it's a free and virtual event. So please join us there. We would love your feedback and your help developing the Caracal release. Wow, 17 blueprints merged in Nova, and just about half of them got implemented. That's amazing. Thank you, Nova contributors, for all of your hard work. Next up, we have Neutron updates from Rodolfo.
So thank you very much, Chantal, and hello everyone. So during this last cycle was quite intense for Neutron in terms of code merge, and I'm proud saying that we have a healthy community contributing in new and very interesting features. I will also want to highlight the active participation of many users during the Vancouver PTG. Maybe the problem we had is that we didn't have time enough to finish all those ongoing developments, but we have some new features introduced during the last Bobcat cycle. For example, please, next slide. So, for example, the new API, which allows defining a set of security group rules that can be used automatically in new default security groups. For example, that will allow the administrator not to be constrained to the default 4 security group rules that are now created when the default security group is created along with a new project. That will improve the security if needed by the administrator. We also have a new port attribute that will modify the local Open vSwitch user space transmit packet stream feature that allows the user to configure the performance of each port when using OBSDPDK using different strategies. We also have a new implementation for new API policies for the role-based access control with system scope and default roles. That belongs to a common effort that started more than 2 releases ago, implementing the secure airbag policies. And this is aligned with the OpenStack community goals to implement this new API for every project. And also we have a rate limiter for the metadata services to avoid DOS and stop misbehaved instances. But I would also to mention, yes, the next slide. Thank you. So, well, to be honest, next time I will be more explicit when creating those kind of slides. But let me explain this a bit better. I will be better explaining it than making those slides. So we have several ongoing developments that have been started not only during this release but also in previous one. For example, improving the OVN L3 scheduler that will be optimized for balance to balance the gateway nodes. Those new schedulers will handle better the availability zones, and there will be also new classes that will be able to work fine with bare metal bare metal ports using the same scheduler using in Core OVN. We will also have router flavors for OVN, allowing to use external hardware devices along with software routers in ML2 OVN. We will have also IPv6 metadata support for OVN, closing another ML2 OVS to ML2 OVN parity gap. And we will implement OVN gateway multi-homing, which is a feature currently supported by Core OVN. And as I said, this is an ongoing feature in Neutron, but it is taking more time than expected. As Sylvain mentioned, the next virtual PTE registration is open, and all the DFR paths are open to propose any new feature. So as a summary, I will say thank you all and stay tuned for the next cycle. Thank you very much.
Yes, lots of excellent work done by Neutron developers as well. Thank you for all your hard work and being involved in the Bobcat release. And Neutron is also planning to meet at the PTG, so there are more opportunities to get involved and help out with that future development. Joining us next to give updates on Ironic is Jay Faulkner, who's actually the newly elected TC chair as well. Congratulations, Jay.
Oh, thanks for that. Yeah, it's I appreciate folks having the trust in me for the next 6 months, but let's make sure we have one of these for Caracal before we celebrate too hard. So let's talk a little bit about what Ironic did this cycle. I always like to start out with some of the statistics about the development. During our cycle, we had about 324 commits, 32 different contributors, including a couple of new first-time Ironic contributors, and welcome to the team. Across over 15 different companies, 3,200 change lines, and most people don't know this, but bare metal is pretty complex. We actually have 22 different repositories that we juggle to keep all this going. So I'm very excited about this because our team is growing, not just in code contributors, but in operators who are part of the community. And if you're one of those, you're welcome to come join us in IRC or through the Matrix Bridge sometime to come say hello, tell us about your installation. But let's talk about what we delivered for you. And so I've kind of broken these up into 3 big themes. The first theme is with Ironic, we don't only provision bare metal hardware, we also manage its life cycle. And that's where a lot of the effort in Ironic goes, to make sure that you're able to maintain a bare metal server throughout its lifetime in your cloud. So what this means is we're always making that better. This time what we've done is we took our step framework, which is the way in Ironic you would perform maintenance tasks such as erasing a disk or upgrading firmwares or really anything you need to do on a server. And it used to be that you could only do those for cleaning, which is when a machine isn't provisioned or at deploy time. But now we've added in the ability to perform service steps. And these can be triggered via the API with a set of steps to run. And those steps will run actually on an active provisioned server. It may reboot your instance or something of that nature, but it's very exciting because when you combine this with the Ironic feature, which currently only is supported for standalone, we're targeting coordinating with our Nova friends to get this in for Caracal for Nova users. But if you're using Ironic standalone and you enable our automatic lessee command, you can configure your policies in such a way where the users who provision bare metal hardware in Ironic can be actually given the keys to perform service steps to maintain their own devices. So imagine a world where your users are able to coordinate firmware updates with their own software, making API calls to Ironic, removing nodes from rotation before beginning the update, things like that, just completely removing a class of work from the traditional cloud administration team and giving the users the keys to it, which is very exciting. And that's a pattern that I think you'll see emerging more. In addition, and these were sort of the next 2 were kind of targeted toward, well, this is still in the server maintenance. The last 2 bullets there are about adding some steps to enable some coordination. And these may seem a little disconnected, but they're both a part of an effort to support DPUs or smart NICs, or in general, these advanced pieces of hardware, which might have their own power supply, which might have their own BMC, and might require coordination between the operating system of the machine it's in and the firmware of the device itself. And so in order to support that, we've had to add some enhancements to our steps. We've added steps that permit flow control. So you can do things like you can say hold during cleaning, and that node will hold in a clean hold or service hold or deploy hold state, while an external coordination that you've configured goes, reads, does actions on that node until it sends Ironic API an unhold command. And this is useful for coordinating things between different servers that may need to coordinate with this, or even if you have a third-party system that you want to be able to participate in those processes, they can now look for that state and go for it. And that's exciting. For power control as well, we've exposed those as steps. So power off, power on, and restart, just as we would call them in Ironic's code, or as would happen if you called the HTTPS APIs, you're now going to get that power control ability in built-in steps. In addition, we've added a concept of a parent node and a child node. So again, you could have a server that's the parent node with a DPU as the child node, and using all of these features combined, create a coordination that can upgrade that firmware between the cooperation between the PCI device and the OS itself. If it sounds complex, it's because the hardware is complex. We're trying to do all we can to make it usable. And so along those lines, we've actually taken one of our concepts that used to be sort of more complex and more custom, and we've taken it out of that realm and we promoted it to a top level Ironic API. This is always an exciting moment for us. If we can get the next slide, please. This is always an exciting moment for us because Ironic often does things like firmware update support, for instance, before the standards are in place to make it similar across our hardware. And now that we've proven that out, we've shown the value that it can do. We've taken that, we promoted it to a top level API. So what this means is we have a driver interface for Ironic that can be implemented to allow access to this firmware support. We do have an initial implementation that supports Redfish. I will say hardware is wildly different. This is a new feature. It's been tested on actual Redfish hardware, but it may not have been tested on your actual Redfish hardware. So please just, make sure you test it, do your own due diligence. We can't always count on our hardware to behave the way we expect. And this is going to allow querying through the API for firmware information. So if, for instance, you have a security requirement that you're able to return the firmware version that's on all of your nodes, we'll be able to do that now. If you want to be able to check that it's running a specific version before deploying a specific workload, you can do that now. In addition, just like with all of our other interface-based things, that's where we've centralized the update commands to update and manage that firmware. So this is very exciting. Thank you so much to Yuri for writing the support, working through it. And Julia actually did a lot of the work for the cleaning enhancements before. And we always want to make sure that folks get that recognition. But realistically, those are exciting for certain use cases. Everyone always wants to see more stability and more fixes. And that is definitely something that we focus on every cycle. I picked out a few top level items that we've had for bug fixes and just sort of minor enhancements that hopefully will make your life easier depending on how you use Ironic. We had several issues reported to us by the Metal Cubed project under CNCF, which we're grateful to our partnership with them, related to SQLite database utilization. And large amounts of effort has gone into making this work more reliably, making it work more quickly. And even if you're not using SQLite, those cleanups in our database code to prevent locking, to handle failures and contention better, are going to make your more highly scaled Ironics work better due to that error handling work we've done. So it's the sort of thing I'm not going to be able to point a finger to one specific thing you'll see there. However, it's our hope that, we've maybe removed a class of potential issues or confusions in database layer. One other item is something we've been working on to make it easier to run a single Ironic cluster to manage multiple CPU architectures. Traditionally, we had a top level single setting to set defaults for things like RAM disks and kernels for cleaning or deployment, such things. That obviously doesn't work very well in a situation where you might have multiple CPU architectures. And while we had a way you could do it by overriding it on a per node basis, that's obviously not sustainable at high scale. So we've added the ability to set those defaults by CPU architecture, which is a big boon, and it should enable people to easily run mixed x86 and ARM clouds, or heck, maybe some other CPU architecture. If so, come talk to me, because that sounds like it would be fun. And thanks to Kuba for that feature. The other item is operators can now force the use of non-MD5 hashes for image verification. It's not our belief that using MD5 hashes for image verification at the last step is necessarily a security issue, but we know that we have some security sensitive operators and environments who require the ability to turn that off universally. And so we've added that, and hopefully that makes your life a little bit easier if you have that requirement. Finally, I'm going to plug, just like everyone else has, the Ironic Virtual PTG. We definitely had a lot of participation, a lot of new faces at the physical PTG in Vancouver, and it was nice to have those conversations. Would love to see you back at the virtual PTG. We've not exactly aligned all of our topics to times yet, but all Ironic sessions will be within these windows in the Folsom room. And in addition to the Ironic VPTG, which we have every year, we also are renewing our bare metal SIG operator hour. If you've never been to our bare metal SIG meetings or you're not familiar, this is something that's run by OpenStack's run by Ironic contributors, but really, we've all been working on provisioning hardware for years and years, and we want to talk about the troubles, the success stories, the sad stories, just meet each other and commiserate for a little while about that. So I don't care if you're an Ironic user, if you're using Metal Cubed, or if you're using something completely off the board, come say hello to us, talk about bare metal provisioning, and we'll see what we can do. And thanks so much.
Gotta love a group therapy session. The statistics that you mentioned at the beginning were my favorite part in particular of this update. I really love the data, and knowing that there are new contributors to Ironic this cycle is even more exciting. Congratulations to all new and old contributors to Ironic. There's always more work to be done, and we always welcome more contributors. Open community is an incredibly important tenet of all of our open infra communities and projects. Next up, we have Bobcat updates from Manila. So take it away, Carlos.
Thanks, Kendall. Hello, everyone. And yeah, I'm Carlos. I work in the Manila team, and I'm the OpenStack Manila PTO. And yeah, today I'm going to be sharing you some of the highlights of our Bobcat release, or 2023.2, as you wish. Couple of items, couple of things that we managed to complete after an effort of a lot of cycles. The first of the things that I would like to mention is the resource locks for shares and access rules. And this came from operators' requests and feedbacks. All of these were really important for us to cover two main use cases for this feature. One of them is operators that wanted to prevent accidental deletion of shares that are mounted and consumed across multiple user workloads. And the other one, which is really important for us as well, is the usage within OpenStack Nova. So we are actively pursuing a share attach or detach API for the Caracal release, and this feature will enable users to request their shares to be attached to VMs using virtual-UFS. So Nova, in order for this to happen, Nova would need to lock the corresponding shares from accidental or intentional deletion until it's properly unmounted by the compute instances that can prevent outages and some unwanted things. So this resource lock was for shares was one of the things that was implemented, but we also reused the same resource locks mechanism to do other stuff that we would need to get the work we needed in the Manila side for virtual-UFS to be completed. And the other part is the access rules visibility lock. So in the past, let me walk you through what that means. So in the past, access rules in Manila didn't disclose the access to and access keys field and that could end up exposing a VMIP or an access key. And we can call those sensitive fields because, I mean, we don't want to expose information like that to people that shouldn't be seeing it. So we needed a way to make sure that the access rules created by Nova VMs would have their, would be redacted. We would redact the IP addresses or the access keys of the Nova instances. And now you can also place a visibility lock in the access rule, and it will have the some of the fields redacted, and you'll be able to hide a couple of things there. And these were like the parts we discovered we thought we needed to do, and they were completed during the Bobcat release. And as I told, like the resource locks API is generic, as you can see, so we could reuse it for both locking shares and access rules. Like access rules can also be have their deletion locked. We also want to make it a deletion lock because otherwise someone could attempt to delete the access rule to the Nova instance, and then people would lose like access, would not be able to write data to shares anymore. So deletion locks for access rules are also in place, but this API, it can be extended to any of the Manila resources in the future, and we designed this thinking about that. And all of these authentication and authorization is having RPAC in mind. So please check out the blog post that features these changes. It has some reasonings, the specifications, and a special quote from folks at Klura that mentioned about their use cases and how this feature will make their life easier. We've heard several requests about this in the past PTGs, and the operators' feedback was really incredible, and it helped us to shape this and to get this done. And a special thank you to the Novo team on this as well for working with us on the design, and also Gotham and Hene for leading the implementation of both Gotham in the Manila team and Hene in the Nova team. We are targeting this for the Caracal release. So another major feature that we added to Manila was share backups, and it works similarly to what Cinder volume backups do. In Manila, basically you'll be able to backup and restore shares generically with the help of the Manila Data Manager service, and it will work like similarly to the way we do share migration in the generic approach. And this indeed uses some parts of the generic migration mechanism. And this is currently only implemented in a generic way, but in the future, the third-party drivers and the vendors will be able to implement this as well and leverage the features of their own backends. One other big thing that took several cycles for us to complete was after a lot of work and a couple of releases, we have managed to add the last piece we were planning for in the Manila client, which was we are adding the deprecation warning to the Manila client. And first, huge shout out to all the interns and the community members that worked with us to reach feature parity and do proper testing on this. And we reached parity in the previous cycles and completed the last bits we needed on this cycle. And then came the decision to start the deprecation process for the Manila client. So now, when you are issuing a Manila command, that will be a very nice thing. That came from operator feedback as well. So every time now you issue a Manila command, you will get a deprecation warning plus a suggestion on what's the command you should be using in OSC or OpenStack client. And that's going to be really useful. So thanks everyone for the feedback on that as well, and for helping with that. And also a couple of more updates. I think in the next slide, we have next one is limiting the maximum share size for share size extension through the share type extra specs. Some important enhancements to this FNFS driver when doing migrations from previously deployed Ganesha cluster to a CephADM deployed Ganesha cluster. Now the export paths will contain a preferred export location that will always default to the CephADM deployed Ganesha, and the access rules will be replayed when you do the restart. And environments that use the NetApp backends will be able to use their NetApp Active IQ, a scheduler layer. So this is something that the NetApp team worked on, and it has some built-in AI to help you place the pools, to help you find the best pools to place your shares. And yeah, that's something NetApp specific. So please take a look in case you're using the NetApp backends. This can be quite useful to you. We have two new backend drivers, being the Dell Power Store and Dell Power Flex, and several bug fixes and enhancements. So these were all of the items we managed to accomplish. I mean, you can check out the things we worked on the Bobcat release as well, checking the release notes. There's a lot more that was done there, lots of bug fixes and things that we were proud to get completed on this cycle. And for the next cycle, we have we have some plans to support user modifiable metadata for share export locations, and continue the Chorus team work with the Nova team to allow users to attach and detach their Manila shares on VMs via virtualFS. Now, some enhancements to share backups as well, and just we have that kind of completed already, like the APIs for in the SDK for resource logs and everything Nova needs, but we just need to merge that on the OpenStack SDK. But it's almost done as well. So as I said, like I try to highlight a lot the importance that the operator feedback had on all of these items. So please, if you want to, if you have some feedback to give to us, and if you'd like to see something enhanced, please join us at the PTG, and we will be happy to hear your feedback. So yeah, that's all for the Manila updates. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I just want to take a second to call out the resource lock work in particular. It really is an excellent example of the feedback loop that we aspire to for all of our projects. So if you're an operator of OpenStack, we really need your feedback. The PTG is coming up. Please register and participate. It doesn't matter if you're not running Bobcat. If you're a couple releases behind, that's totally okay. Your feedback and involvement is still crucial to the continued growth and success of our community. So please get involved. We really want you there. We want to hear from you. We want you to be more integrated in our community. Next up, we have one more project. Bobcat highlights from Cinder, from Rajat.
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Kendall. So I'm Rajat. I am serving as a Cinder PTL. So let's get on to some of the new things that we have in Bobcat. So we added 3 new storage drivers. So first one is the Yadro Tatlin Unified FC driver. So in the last cycle, they added the iSCSI driver, and it's good to see they are like actively contributing. Now they have their fiber channel driver as well. So yeah, more contributions from them. This one is a new one, which we have the Toyo NetStore iSCSI driver, and it's good to see contributions from different vendors, like adding more to our list of supported drivers. And finally, we have the Pure Storage Flash Array NVMe TCP. So Pure already supported iSCSI and Fiber Channel, and now they also support NVMe TCP. So it's kind of the most used protocols that Pure supports now, which is really good to see. So that's all the driver we added, and it's not a new feature, but it's actually a bug fix that we could not restore RBD backups to normal volumes. So in Cinder, we have the volume backend and we have the backup backend. So when we create a volume in, let's say, LVM or any other storage array, and we try to restore RBD backup to it, it used to fail before, but now we have fixed that functionality. So it works now. You can use it. Another one is the OSC SDK work. So in the last cycle, we reached parity with OpenStack client, and now we are pushing it further to add support for missing APIs in SDK. So once we have all the Cinder API is supported in SDK, we will continue to migrate the OpenStack client and to point to SDK, and finally we could deprecate Cinder client at some point. But yeah, it will take a couple of more cycles for us to get to that. But yeah, the work is ongoing, and even we are going to discuss it at the upcoming PTG. So if anyone is interested working on it, then surely join us. And on to the next slide. Yeah, so this is kind of an important one. So I filled up a whole slide with it. So we have a CVE, which is kind of important and has a deployment impact. So I would just like to quickly explain what is the situation. So when a volume is attached to a Nova instance and we just unmap that volume, so we have the attachment delete API in Cinder that unmaps the volume from the Nova host. So we have unmapped the volume, but Nova isn't aware, like if the volume disappeared because of a network issue or any other issue. So it keeps on checking, like if the volume can be available later. And in the meantime, if we try to attach another volume and it uses the same values, like the host bus, the same PCI configuration, then the Nova instance thinks it's the same volume and it gets unauthorized access to that volume, which is really bad. We don't want any random instance to get access to a volume that is not intended for it. So the solution that we preferred was to block the attachment delete request unless it's one of the reasonable reasons that so for Nova, the reason is like if the request is coming from Nova and Nova has a service token, then we will accept that request. But now end users cannot just go and delete attachments because it is a security loophole that we fixed during this cycle. And there is a deployment change associated with it. Like we have a whole documentation around it, how to configure service tokens for Nova, but you will need to modify the nova.conf file to add more credentials. So yeah, the document covers everything, but there is a deployment impact. You need to change some things for your attachment delete to work. So if you just upgrade to Bobcat and see the attachment volume detachment failing, then you can just refer to this talk and see like the changes you can do to fix that situation. So we have merged and released this CVE on all the supported stable branches. So from 2023.2 Bobcat till Yoga, we have this fixed merge and release. So you can be rest assured, like all these, if you use any of this branch, the latest version, then you will not be seeing this issue, or it is not exploitable for you. And finally, we have information about the PTG. So as everyone already said, like we have a PTG upcoming. So Cinder is keeping 4 days blocked from 24 to 27 October, and the time we keep for every day is 4 hours from Tuesday to Friday. So usually the Cinder topics fill up all the time, but if there are less number of topics this time, we can just shorten the duration. But for now, I have booked the Cactus room in the PTG link. So if you, I will update the meeting URL, but if you just go to that during the PTG and just click on it, you will be redirected to the Cinder room. And we have a planning Etherpad. So I would like to request you to please add topics if you would like to discuss it with the Cinder team. Yeah, that's pretty much all the updates from Cinder side.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rajat, for all of that. So that wraps up updates from 5 OpenStack services: Nova, Neutron, Ironic, Manila, and Cinder. But there are just a few more OpenStack services than that, in case you are not already aware. So if any other OpenStack projects want to share their Bobcat project updates like these lovely folks did, remember that you can always record your own and then send it to us, and we'll make sure to share it with the entire community. So while we wait for audience questions to roll in, I want to invite everyone back on camera. Do any of you have anything in particular you want to mention about your amazing contributors or operator involvement being the two focuses of this release in particular?
Well, I was going to follow up on something that Rahat said about Cinder and that CVE in particular.
Oh, sure.
Just noting, if you've not upgraded for that yet and you are using Ironic, Nova, or other OpenStack services, please make sure you read that security notice in detail. There is an Ironic patch required if you're using Ironic Cinder integration that goes along with that. So that's a particularly tricky one. Make sure you look at that and make sure you get all your services updated, or else you're just going to see weird failures.
Important thing to note, definitely. So while we wait for any questions that the audience has about any of the updates you all have shared today.
Yeah, so I will just actually reiterate what I said previously. I mean, if you really look at the numbers, I think a third of the features that we implemented this cycle were actually provided by use cases from the operators. Nothing is magic. Nothing is magic. We all have priorities, and we basically try to do our own stuff. But if we don't hear any feedback from the operators, I mean, we could be wrong. And you mentioned basically a feedback loop. For us, this is crucial. Particularly this time, we'll have a virtual PTG. I then reiterate the fact that, yes, indeed, this is free. Yes, indeed, there may be some concerns about the fact that we have contributors, but here, all of the PTLs around are trying to make room for operators joining. And that's definitely the right time for operators joining in, identifying their own use cases that they have in order for us to find a solution for them. And that happened last cycle, and I would really like to have it happen again for Caracal, because that story works.
Yeah. Jay, do you want to talk a little bit about the TC trying to organize operator hours for?
Well, I was going to play off with something that Sylvain said first, which is don't ever feel imposter syndrome or feel nervous about engaging with the community if it's not something you've done before. There have been multiple times, not even always in upstream context, sometimes in a downstream conversation, it'll be the most junior person in the room who will have the idea that breaks through the problem or things like that. So please come talk to us. It's not going to be imposing, especially if you come at the VPTG or one of the operator hours and come talk to us. No idea is too silly. No problem is too weird. You know, let us be the ones to say no. Don't say no for us. We want to have those conversations. And as Kendall indicated, the TC is encouraging projects to hold operator hours explicitly for this type of interaction. But I'm going to be honest, in the past, we've not had great participation in that. And in order to justify that time from the contributors, we really do need folks who are using OpenStack to reach across, to come join us and have those conversations. Or even, like I said, if the operator hours, if coming to a video session, talking to people, coming to IRC, talking to people is not it, and you have some good idea for how we can gather feedback, bring that too, right? Like the meta feedback. We'll take whatever you've got. We want to be where the operators are, because y'all know where the real problems are. And quite frankly, I would rather hear about your problem from you and solve it rather than wait until the people I work for experience it and have to solve it themselves, right? Like we all have different environments, and you will have a unique insight if you come and chat with us.
Yeah. Addressing problems before they become problems is great. But if you're having problems, we would love to know about them so we can help you, work with you on fixing them. So actually, if you are unsure about getting involved in the PTG, you can look at the schedule that's developing as various project teams sign up for time. So if you go to ptg.opendev.org, you can see when teams are planning to meet. And we're working on getting the operator hours set up on that schedule as well. So keep checking back for updates. And yeah, perfect. Yeah, there you go. A link makes it easier for discoverability.
Yeah, just one last notice. So basically, when you look at this website, you will find that the teams will meet together on specific timings. Don't be afraid of the fact that you will see it's like, for example, for Noah, this is 4 hours per day. That doesn't mean you have to attend 4 hours per day.
Yes.
Obviously, you can actually join anytime you want. We will have some kind of agenda depending on the projects. Some projects do have some kind of agenda before they meet, while some other teams are like trying to run on the topics when they want. But the fact is, keep in mind that if you're only able to join at some specific time, no worries. People will try to make room for discussing about your own use case. That's actually not a problem. Take it more like the fact that some projects are like meeting together for 4 hours per day. Take it like you have the opportunity to meet them anytime you want during those 4 hours. This is the other way you should be seeing it.
Yeah, it's very flexible, and a lot of teams are willing to shift topics if you say that you really want to be involved in a particular one but can't make it at that time. Everybody's really friendly, I promise. And honest, we do have a number of teams outside of OpenStack that are meeting at the PTG as well. Starling X will be participating. Kata Containers with a little bit of the confidential container project from the CNCF is actually going to be meeting as well. So if you're a project that is interested in meeting at the PTG but isn't already signed up, feel free to reach out and I can get you set up and get you involved. There are going to be a lot of excellent conversations all throughout the week, and yeah, we'd love to see you there. Love your feedback, love your involvement. Doesn't look like we've got any questions so far. So are there any other Bobcat things that people want to mention before we wrap?
I know that Nova, Sylvain did a good job of mentioning this in the presentation, but we should be a little loud about this, that, you know, we did hear operator feedback about the upgrade carousel that you get on a little bit. This is our first release that you can skip. So if you've somehow listened to all of this and you go, I don't need it, you can skip it and you can upgrade directly to Caracal. We've worked hard to give you that option and have been testing it. So please do not forget that. And it's pretty fun that, you know, we go from having projects where you could upgrade their software 6 times a year if you wanted to now you can upgrade once a year. So we're trying to maintain that flexibility to keep you off that upgrade carousel. I've done OpenStack upgrades in large clusters before. You can make the software as good as you want, but making that many computers do what you want is an incredibly difficult task, and having to do it once a year instead of twice is going to be a benefit for a lot of folks.
Yeah, and that itself was operator feedback that we've adopted and figured out how to make dreams come true, you know. So I want to thank all of our awesome speakers today. Thank you, Saman, Rodolfo, Jay, Carlos, Rajat, and thank you to our excellent audience for being here with us today. And we look forward to the next episode. Don't forget, if you have an idea for a future episode, we really want to hear from you. Submit your ideas to ideas.openinfra.live, and maybe we'll see you on a future show. Thanks again to today's guests, and we'll see you on the next episode of Open Infra Live.